Good morning. Welcome to the November 20th, 2025 California Board of Behavioral Sciences meeting. My name is Wendy Strack, Chairperson of the board. And before we convene, I'd like to remind everyone present that the board is a consumer protection agency charged with administering and enforcing the board's laws. Where protection of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protection of the public shall be paramount. The Board of Behavioral Sciences will be holding this public meeting in person and via the WebEx platform. I will announce when we're accepting public comment on the various issues. And for each public comment, we will first be accepting comments from participants present in the room. Then the moderator will open the lines as appropriate so that the remote audience members can comment. Each commenter will have 2 minutes to comment. Moderator, would you please provide the audience instructions on how they may participate during the meeting at the appropriate times?
Sure. This is the moderator. When the board opens for public comment, you'll be able to click the raise hand icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen, and we'll display instructions on the screen for your reference each time. If you are an audio-only participant, you can press *3 on your device to raise your hand. You'll be given 2 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning, and at the end of the time, we will move on to the next individual requesting public comment.
Thank you. Moving to item 1, call to order and establishment of a quorum. Members, during the roll call, please introduce yourself and let the public know whether you are a public or licensed member. Christina, please call the roll.
Good morning. Rebecca Thies.
Good morning. I'm a public member.
Dr. Annette Walker.
Good morning, present, public board member.
Kelly Ranasinghe.
Good morning, public member, pronouns he, him.
Susan Friedman.
Good morning, public member.
Wendy Strack.
Present, public member.
John Sovek.
Present, LMFT, pronouns he, him.
Christopher Jones.
Present LEP member, pronouns he, him.
Lorez Bailey.
Good morning, public member, present, thank you.
And for the record, Dr. Nicholas Boyd will join us shortly. He's currently absent. Justin Huft and Eleanor Uribe are absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We will be looking to take a lunch break as close to 11:30 as possible, and that'll really depend on where we are with the hearings. Moving to item 2, suggestions for future agenda items. Are there any future agenda item suggestions from board members? Seeing none, are there any in-house audience participants that would like to suggest future agenda items? Seeing none, do we have any online participants that would like to suggest future agenda items?
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that raise hand button, or if you're an audio-only participant, you can press *3 on your device. All right, and it appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Thank you. Moving to item 3, public comment for items not on the agenda. I'll now open public comments for items not on the agenda. As a reminder, the board may not discuss or take action on any matter raised during this public comment section, except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. Each commenter will have 2 minutes. Do any board members have any comments for items not on the agenda? Seeing none. Do we have any comments from our in-house audience? And then moderator, do we have any comments from our online audience participants?
This is the moderator for members of the public on WebEx. If you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that raise hand icon, or if you're an audio-only participant, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 on your device. All right, and this is the moderator. It appears there are no requests for public comment at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we'll begin our petition hearings. And today, the proceedings will be conducted by Judge Chris Dietrich. And good morning, Judge. The meeting is yours.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Before we go on the record and get started with our petitions for early termination of probation, I first want to just see that all of our petitioners are present. Is Mr. Hornbeck present? Thank you, good morning. And Ms. Redoble? Thank you, good morning. And Ms. Perosier? Thank you, good morning. And Mr. Garcia? Thank you, good morning. So I'm going to go over, before we get started, a general outline of how the proceedings will go. I'm doing this as a general matter for all the petitioners, so we don't have to repeat the instructions in detail later. However, when we go on the record on each petition, some of these matters will be stated with just a little bit less detail. So for each petitioner, the burden of proof is on the petitioner to prove that they are entitled to the relief that they are seeking in the petition. The Deputy Attorney General will be first presenting background on the matter and presenting the petition packet to the board. After that, you will have the opportunity to testify under oath. After you are finished with your testimony, the Deputy Attorney General will ask you questions, and then the board members may ask you questions. After the conclusion of the matter, the board, you will not get a decision today. The board will go into closed session to deliberate, and you will receive a written decision in the mail sometime after today's hearing. Our office, the Office of Administrative Hearings, which is where I work, uses an electronic system called Case Center that is used to keep hearing exhibits. I noticed that the Deputy Attorney General uploaded a petition packet and some background documents, and several petitioners uploaded documents, additional documents of their own in support of their petition. I'm just going to double check to make sure that everybody has received the background documents that were on Case Center, either through Case Center or through email or otherwise. Mr. Hornbeck, did you receive those documents? Okay. Mr. Doble and Ms. Perosier and Mr. Garcia. Okay. So, and then the order that we're going to be, and one final note before we get started, we do have a court reporter here who's going to take down everything that's being said verbatim. A few things we can do to make the court reporter's job a little bit easier so we have a clear and accurate record. I ask that everyone take care to speak slowly and clearly. And also we have to avoid talking over each other. It might be normal in everyday conversation for a little bit of over talk, but that really doesn't work in an official proceeding like this. And then also I ask our board members, whenever you have a question, please identify yourself by name so our court reporter knows who's asking the question and we get that on the record. In the order that we're going to take proceedings in, we're going to start with the Redoble matter. So if you could please come forward. Bottle of water. They want to have. Oh, are you allowed to have one? Yes, that's fine. Oh, and one other note for all the petitioners, when you're speaking, make sure you're speaking into the microphone. That's so we can hear you, and also for observers online. So whenever you're situated, just let me know and we'll get started. And the moderator.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right, are you ready?
as I'll ever be.
Okay, Ms. Crawford, are you ready as well? Okay, Madam Court Reporter, you ready? Okay. Good morning, everybody. We are on the record before the Board of Behavioral Sciences to review the petition for early termination of probation of Nadia Renee Redoble. This is Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 2025-100976. My name is Christopher Dietrich. I am an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and I have been assigned to preside over this matter. As this is the first matter for the morning, we are going to reestablish a quorum officially on the record. So ask that all the members, starting with our chair and going on down, please state their name for the record.
Wendy Strack, Chair of the Board.
John Sobek, LMFT, pronouns he, him.
Chris Jones, LEP member, pronouns he, him.
Lorez Bailey, public member.
Rebecca Thies, public member.
Dr. Annette Walker, public member, pronouns she, her.
Sally Renisinger, public member, pronouns he, him.
Susan Friedman, public member.
Nick Boyd, LPCC member, he, him.
Thank you. A quorum of the board is present. May I please have the appearance of our court reporter? Thanks. Would you mind hitting the button on the side of your microphone just so we can hear you? You can take a moment. Thank you. You don't need to repeat it. But you're good. And appearance for the Deputy Attorney General.
Good morning, Anahita Crawford, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the Attorney General's Office pursuant to Government Code Section 11522 in order to assist the panel in fact-finding.
Thank you. Also present is the petitioner Nadia Renee Redoble, and you have chosen to represent yourself today. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Before the hearing started, I explained the procedures in this matter that will be followed. As I explained, the Deputy Attorney General will proceed first to present the petition and provide orientation to this matter. After that, the petitioner has the right to make a presentation under oath on her own behalf to explain why she believes that her license the probation should be terminated early. The petitioner may also call witnesses to testify on her behalf. The petitioner and any witnesses will be subject to questioning both by the board and the Deputy Attorney General. The board is particularly concerned with the rehabilitation that the petitioner may have engaged in, and the petitioner is reminded that the board has had the benefit of reading the entire petition package, and you do not have to repeat anything that is stated in that package. After the hearing, the board will go into closed session to deliberate. The petitioner will not receive a decision today, but will receive it in the mail sometime in the future. Did you have any questions for me, ma'am?
No.
And if you do have questions regarding hearing procedure, you are welcome to ask that. I cannot give you legal advice, but I can give you guidance on the hearing, okay? Okay. So with that, we will now proceed to the Deputy Attorney General's presentation.
Thank you, Your Honor. The petitioner's registration was issued on July 27th, 2023. That registration is current and valid and will expire on July 31st of 2026. The registration is for the Associate Clinical Social Worker. A statement of issues was filed on March 15th, 2023, and a stipulated settlement was adopted effective July 27th, 2023. That stipulation placed petitioner on probation for 3 years. The basis of the statement of issues was that on October 15th of 2010, petitioner had been convicted of 2 felony counts of second-degree robbery and 1 felony count of child abuse. The court sentenced petitioner to serve 6 years and 4 months in prison. Petitioner was placed on criminal probation thereafter on July 28th of 2004, I believe it's 2014, and thereafter paroled on May 2nd of 2015. She did receive a certificate of rehabilitation from the court on May 18th of 2023. The circumstances surrounding the conviction were that on or about November 30th of 2009, officers witnessed a robbery at an IHOP restaurant where an individual fled the scene into a vehicle that was being driven by the petitioner. After a police pursuit, the petitioner and the individual were detained. The petitioner's 2 children were sitting in the back seat of the car during the pursuit. The petitioner was identified as one of the individuals who had attempted to rob CVS and Rite Aid drugstores earlier that day. And during an interview with the petitioner, she did admit to being involved in those robberies, including one that occurred at a Walgreens drugstore on November 23rd of 2009. Petitioner's expected end of probation date in her disciplinary matter is July 26th of 2026. 8 months remain on her probationary period. She is requesting early termination of probation. Petitioner was ordered to participate in psychotherapy, quarterly reports, reimbursement of probation program. She is fully compliant with all aspects of her probation and has been doing psychotherapy for 1 time per week.
Your Honor, I have nothing further to add. I would reserve on questioning the petitioner.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Doble, I'm now going to administer an oath to you. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you will give in this matter will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You may put your hand down. Please state and spell your full name for the record.
Nadia Brene Redoble, NADIA
Thank you. At this time, this is your opportunity to present your case, why to explain to the board why you believe you're entitled to the early termination of your probation, and you may proceed when ready. Go ahead.
Your Honor, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Can I introduce my exhibits first?
Sure. Excuse the interruption. Go ahead.
The first exhibit is the notice of hearing for today's hearing date. I'd like to mark and introduce that into evidence.
And Mr. Doble, as we go through these documents, I'm going to ask you if you have any objections to the board reading and considering them. Do you have any objections to Exhibit 1?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Exhibit 2 is the license history certification. In this case, the registration history. We'd like to mark and introduce that as Exhibit 2.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit 2 is admitted.
Exhibit 3 is a case summary that is prepared by Craig Zimmerman, who is a probation analyst assigned to the petitioner. It does provide a summary of the petitioner's history and her current status on probation. We'd like to mark and introduce this as Exhibit 3.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Exhibit 4 is the petitioner's petition that she filed along with statements explaining the petition. I would like to mark and introduce this as Exhibit 4.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit 4 is admitted.
Exhibit 5 contains the petitioner's documents that she submitted in support of her petition. We'd like to mark and introduce these as Exhibit 5.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit 5 is admitted.
Exhibit 6 contains criminal documentation pertaining to the petitioner's underlying criminal case that led to the statement of issues. We'd like to mark and introduce this as Exhibit 6.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit 6 is admitted.
Exhibit 7 contains a release of information as well as a psychotherapy information sheet that the petitioner has provided in support of her petition. We'd like to mark and introduce this as Exhibit 7.
Any objection?
No.
7 is admitted.
And Exhibit 8 is the underlying disciplinary documents that we'd like to mark and introduce as Exhibit 8.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit 8 is admitted.
And I do understand that the petitioner also has, it looks like, 2 exhibits in her petitioner's evidence.
And was there any objection to admitting those?
No, Your Honor.
I will, Mr. Doble, the 2 items you uploaded, I will admit those as Exhibits A and B. So now is your opportunity to present your testimony. Go ahead, take a breath, and proceed when ready.
Thank you. First and foremost, I would like to thank the board and its members for allowing me the opportunity to request for early termination of probation. I did write some notes as a guide that are part of the answers to question 29 of my application but I just decided to go more in depth. Please excuse me in advance if I get emotional in my testimony. It's really hard to relive almost 16 years ago in a room full of strangers. So it is really hard hearing my statement of issues, and you think that after all this time, it gets easier, but it never does. And to go back in time and share my past before I go into my present life. The acts that I committed that night not only makes me cringe, but it puts knots in my stomach because it is truly repulsing to know that I dishonored my children by endangering their lives, possibly harming others, disrespecting myself, and just living wrongfully, selfishly, and disgracefully. And if the board would like to know what led me to do such horrible actions that night, I wish I can tell the board a logical or rational explanation, but I just don't simply have one to give. I made a terrible decision in my active addiction, trying to salvage what left I had of a marriage who was he's my ex-husband now, but at the time we were married, which in itself is a poor and inexcusable reason. But I was weak, I was codependent, I was living in denial, never strong enough to walk away, wanting to save him so badly, not just thinking of trying to save myself, not prioritizing my children, just so uneducated to the disease of addiction. So the crimes I committed were shameful, disgusting, and reckless. But I take full responsibility for my actions that night, and I paid the ultimate price. And as you heard, I was sentenced to 76 months, which was 6 years and 4 months, in which I served a total of 5.5 years of jail and prison time. So yes, I hit my rock bottom pretty much. The board wants to know what I thought I could have done differently that night. Well, that's all I did day in and day out of my incarceration. I lived in the shoulda, woulda, couldas to the point where I almost lost my mind. When you have all that time, you see your freedom is just not what's being taken away from you. Your mind begins to slowly punish you. So I was already feeling this internal pain and remorse for what I had done. But if I was not reminding myself, please believe me that the officers who arrested me that night, the detectives that interrogated me that night, the district attorneys and all the different judges I had, as well as the correctional officers constantly reminding me that I was nothing more but trash, unworthy to be called human. And after hearing it so many times, you just begin to believe that you are the monster. So I did hate myself. I hated being alive. And so many nights I prayed that my life would end and maybe I can give my family or my children some grace instead of the embarrassment and humiliation and pain I have caused them. But death would have been too easy. So my public defender told me that the DA wanted to give me everything I can so that my life would be extremely challenging when I got released. They wanted to make sure that I would never see my children again and that I would always remember what I did. So after going to court so many times, I slowly broke down and I gave in to what they wanted. I took a plea bargain, which consisted of the convictions, the 76 months, as well as being a two-striker, so that when I get out, if I even breathe the wrong way, I would go straight back. So it was almost like I was being set up to fail, branded for life. And I understood the nature of my wrongdoing, so I was not going to fight what I did. I deserved to be put away for what I did, and I deserved everything that was given to me. How I survived prison was a miracle, but it all came down to the support of my family and friends. The people that I once betrayed in my active addictions were the ones who stood by me, and I sure did not deserve their loving kindness, but there they were, putting money on their phones so I can talk to them, writing me letters and visiting me. So I had messages of hope planted along the way. When I found out what my release date was, May 2nd of 2015, my world came crashing down as I counted the years of how old my children were going to be, how old I was going to be, and I just prayed that no one I love would pass away during my incarceration. Then one day my sister wrote me a letter. She wrote me many letters, but there was this one sentence in particular that stood out and completely touched me. She said, "Please take this time, Nadia, to reassess your life and remodel your soul." And so I did. The actions that I've taken to rehabilitate myself began on the very day of my arrest, November 30th of 2009. That moment marked a turning point in my life, and I made a personal and permanent decision to free myself from addiction. Since then, I've remained clean and sober and from alcohol and drugs, and I'm proud to say that on November 30th, the end of this month of 2025, I will be celebrating 16 years of sobriety and recovery. I've had more clean time than I did in my addiction, and I will just let you know that I love my life clean and sober, and I would not jeopardize that for nothing. While I was incarcerated, I sought ways to use my time productively and serve my community, and I heard about Fire Camp through female inmates, and I requested to be part of the program, but only to receive a denial letter stating that due to the nature of my crime, I was ineligible because Fire Camp was for nonviolent offenders, and here I was a violent offender. However, the denial letter stated that I was able to appeal the denial, and so I did. I eventually made my way to hearing, and just kind of like today, but not really. I stood in front of a board, but of like officers. And I remember this female sergeant, she called me up and she told me, Ms. Redoble, after reviewing your case, although your case is violent, we do not deem you as a violent person and will allow you the opportunity to go to fire camp. So please don't let us down or regret the decision we made. Of course, I was extremely ecstatic, not just to hear I was going to fire camp, but because someone who did not know me other than what they've read about me on Black and White didn't deem me as a violent person. And for that brief second, I actually felt a shred of humanity. I knew I would never see this sergeant again, but I owed it to her to not let her down. So I physically trained for months until I was able to pass the fitness test. And you see, I could have been a product of my environment, but I wanted to do something more. So here I was volunteering my time as an inmate firefighter, and I was transferred to Puerto La Cruz Conservation Camp, where I worked alongside of CAL FIRE on a hand crew for 4 fire seasons, actively fighting wildfires through California. And I will tell you, fire camp was truly empowering. I've only done clerical work my whole life, so to climb treacherous mountains with 50-pound gears, I mean, with fire about 3 feet away from you, working day and night to construct like lines, cutting down trees with chainsaws. I mean, doing projects in the community. I mean, I was changing oil on a fire engine. So like, who was this person I was becoming? I don't know, but I loved it.
Could you slow down just a bit?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm
No,
so
no problem.
sorry.
Please continue.
So once I was finally released, I went from earning the respect of fire captains and correctional offers to now just a convicted felon. And the world was different, and I had no idea what path to take. I was given 4 years of formal parole in which my terms were parenting classes, individual counseling, attending meetings of Narcotics Anonymous or Alcohol Anonymous, as well as drug testing. So I humbled myself to new beginnings, and I took the first few months to readjust to civilian life. But I had a 5.5-year gap of no history of no employment, as well as now being a convicted felon. So who is going to hire me? I ended up finding this ad on Craigslist as a receptionist at a small mom and pop security company. And I called and I set up an interview. And when I went there, I was filling the application out. And there it was in big bold letters saying, have you ever been convicted of a felony? And for the first time, I had to mark down yes. So of course, I decided I wasn't going to do it. I decided that I would just leave. I filled out the application manager and I asked her to use the restroom key, and then I would just disappear and never return. But it's funny how we try to control our own destinies. So she handed me a restroom key and she told me, it's down the hall to the left, just return the key. So here I was in the restroom thinking how I was going to plan my escape route. And I said, oh, just go say I have something in the car. So I went back and I handed her the keys and she's like, they're ready for your interview. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So here I was in this office with this owner, and he's having small talk with me. And then he comes down and looks at the yes and says, care to explain? At first I was like superficial, like thinking, okay, just very kind of light, Nadia, don't get into it. But I did. I just decided rigorous honesty is what the program teaches you. And I decided to so I told him, I ended up getting emotional. I cried. And after I explained my situation, he said, okay, just give me 1 second. And he left. And all I kept thinking about was he was going to call my parole officer or the police were going to come. So he came back and he said, thank you for your time. And I said, no, thank you for allowing me to have this interview. And I'm so sorry I wasted your time. And he goes, no, wait. He's like, we'll hire you. And I looked at him and I said, you will? He said, yes. If you mess up, we'll let you go. Fair enough? Absolutely, yes, sir. When would you like me to come in? He told me come in tomorrow at 9 a.m. And I showed up religiously every morning at 8:45. I made $9 an hour, but I didn't care. I had a job and somebody gave me a chance. Somebody felt like I was worth taking the risk. And I eventually worked my way up from a receptionist to an office manager there, and I left the company 3 years later. So after being released from prison, I committed to fully rebuilding my life. And over the next 7 years, I completed my associate's degree, my bachelor's degree, and my master's in social work with honors. I even received the Jean Daniels Awards from Cal State University of Northridge, in which the faculty honors a graduating student who exemplifies leadership, social justice, and academic excellence. I became a certified substance use disorder counselor, all while raising 2 children, maintaining full employment, participating in internship, and constantly attending recovery meetings through Alcohol Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. I complied with all my parole requirements. In 2 years after my release date, I graduated with my AA at a local community college, and I invited my parole officer to attend my graduation. Because at this point, after 2 years, we had built rapport. She and I had become very close, and she was involved in my life and my family. So she had to receive special permission to attend, but when she was able to come, and I received my degree and greeted my family in the crowd, there she was handing me an envelope and told me to open it, and so I did. There were my discharge papers from parole, and she told me that she was going to try to request for early termination, but did not think it would get approved because I was not sentenced, but I was given 4 years. And most parolees don't get approved easily, but she told me that she's never met anyone quite like me in the 30 years she's been in this career. And as happy as I was that day to receive my AA degree, I cried more when I received my discharge papers because it meant that that chapter of my life had ended. Towards the last year of grad school, sorry, I'm going to fast forward a little, around March of 2022, I wanted to go back into therapy. I learned just because I knew that even though I had worked the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous to address my substance abuse and my character defects, I now wanted to work on the unaddressed mental health issues that I had buried away for so long. And I wanted to do more, and as you heard, I requested for a certificate of rehabilitation from the Los Angeles Superior Courthouse. I went in front of Judge Ricardo Ocampo on May 18th of 2023, and here I was going back to a courtroom where I was frowned upon, but this time it was different. The district attorney and the judge giving me the highest accolades of my accomplishment. One sentence that had me break down was when he said, "Ms. Redoble, you have demonstrated what it is like to be completely rehabilitated and a productive member of society, and I will sure not stand in the way of your future successes." I brought my children that day, and I cried and we cried because of this journey we went through together, from being completely damaged, broken, to being rebuilt and now finally redeemed. So since before I was placed on probation with the Board of Behavioral Science, I've been working on my rehabilitation. While on probation with the BBS, I've been fully compliant with all my stipulations. And today, professionally, I work as a HUD-VASH social worker with the Department of Veteran Affairs since October of 2022. I've received excellence and outstanding in my performance. I've never received a verbal or formal or written complaint on any job, or this job or any previous job. I've helped house and maintain stable housing for over 50 veterans and their families, and I will still continue to serve this vulnerable population with empathy and effectiveness. Personally, I've supported my children with achieving their dreams. My eldest is a UCLA student studying political science with aspirations for law school, and my youngest is a rising senior in high school preparing for a future in nursing. And personally, I began to train and I completed the Los Angeles Marathon on March of 2025, finishing a 26.2-mile race in 5 hours and 50 minutes. I've never ran a day of my life, so running the marathon was not only a physical achievement, but a symbol of my perseverance and personal growth. So throughout the years, I've learned that my past does not define me, it strengthens me. Without a question, the burden has become one of my greatest assets, allowing me to deeply connect with and support the individuals I serve. My lived experience gives me the compassion and insight needed to guide others through their own journey. And I have turned painful moments into progress, just as I did ever since the day of November 30th of 2009. So for me, when I hear the word rehabilitation, it hits me a lot differently because it's not just about, it's more than restoration. I see it as something that I think everybody should always be doing, which is improving your conditions daily and just being the best version of yourself. I know that all odds were against me, but I refuse to be part of the recidivism rate. I cannot change what is written about me in black and white, but I sure was going to change the narrative for my future. And I understand that the Board of Behavioral Science holds safety at the highest priority. And even though I've shared my accomplishments throughout the years, I know what it really ultimately boils down to is what have I done since being on probation to assure the board that I'm safe to practice in public. Well, safety for me is huge, and how I practice safety isn't just something I do at my workplace. I feel like it needs to be incorporated both in my personal life as well. So for me, I take the three branches of my life, which is my personal, educational, and professional experiences, and I tie them into my safety. And what I mean by that is, from my past lived experience personally, I've gone down the unsafe path, and I never want to be in that position again. I never want to endanger anyone's life or put anyone in harm's way. So because of that, I always proceed with caution. I err with the side of caution. I don't just want my clients, but for my family and friends or whoever to feel safe around me. I want to create that safe space. And well, how do I do that? Well, I incorporate also my education, what I've learned through my degrees, the MSW program, what I continue to learn through my CEUs, trainings, seminars, webinars, online or in-person workshops, because I need to keep up with the times. I feel like every time I learn something in 6 months, they like incorporate a new thing. So it's really maintaining that competence. And I live by the NASW Code of Ethics. It's like my 10 commandments. So I refer back to it, and I just try to uphold ethical standards, creating boundaries. And as far as my professional, tying that last branch in, I using informed decisions, consent. I mean, most importantly, consult, and document. When in doubt, rule it out. If you see something, say something. If you suspect it, report it. And I use a lot of my clinical supervision, my supervisors, the senior social workers. I mean, I don't care if I don't know. A lot of people have pride with that. I'm the first one to say, I'm not sure about that. Let me seek guidance. And I think because of that, it helps me make better decisions. So I apologize for this long testimony, but it's quite difficult to sum up 16 years of my trials and tribulations. But thank you again so much.
Thank you. Ms. Crawford, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for sharing your history with us.
Thank you.
What drew you to clinical social work?
So I met a few people along the way of my journey, and I remember going back to school, and now here I am with a bunch of, my college friends, students who became my friends. They all decided, why don't you go into social work? Like, let's all apply for the MSW program. And my clinical supervisor at Tarzana Treatment Center, she kept telling me when I told her about it, she said, you would make a great social worker just because you've lived that life and here you are today. And I said, okay. So we all applied and I was very fortunate because I believe they only accept so many students and I was accepted on the first round and then that's kind of how it happened. So
You've told us about the various jobs you had both in prison and out.
yes.
And you had worked for a security firm. What led you to work for Tarzana Treatment Center or even led you to the path of social work?
So when I was at the security company, I was getting my AA degree in sociology and I was transferring to Cal State University of Northridge for my bachelor's degree. And I wanted to start getting like getting into the demographics I was going to work with. And I knew Tarzana Treatment Center, I had actually gone there many years ago. And so it was quite interesting and very surreal that a treatment center that I use was now where I was going to be officially working. But I love the work that they do there. I felt like if I was really going to pursue this, then this would be the place that would really give me that that experience, that, you know, hands-on experience. And that's how I kind of got in there.
What did Tarzana Treatment Center do that was appealing to you?
So I worked in the inpatient detox center, so I felt like I definitely was able to resonate with a lot of the patients there, them also being coming off drugs and alcohol, those coming out of the system of jail or prison and how they work with them, how they offer them resources, and just really, I remember throughout my journey, I had people, so to kind of go back a little bit, I went to CCTRP, which is a community custody treatment reentry program right before my release date. And I met a counselor who was really kind of guiding me, trying to give me the proper tools for when I got released, because 5.5 years is it's a long time. I don't know if you guys have seen the Shawshank Redemption movie, but the old man at the end of the movie who comes out and was like, the world just was just so fast. That's how I felt. And so with that, anyway, sorry to go back, but he told me like, he guided me. And because of that, I wanted to be a light for those still left in the dark. And Tarzana was appealing because they are me, I am them, you know, I am the population I serve, and that's where I felt like I was in my element, I guess you can say.
When did you start there?
So I started there 2018, February of 2018.
And what was your position at that time?
So I started as a peer technician, and then from there I became a substance use disorder counselor. And I left there in October of 2022.
Is that when you went to the Department of Veterans Affairs?
Yes.
Okay, why did you make that transition?
So during my internship at in my MSW program, I interned through the VA. I was working at the vet center, helping veterans readjust to civilian life after being in combat. And my director wanted me to come work for him after I graduated. So unfortunately, when I graduated, there wasn't a position opened, but he told me about another position working at the VA. And I really loved working with veterans. I really felt like I will never know what it's like to serve my country. So if I can serve veterans, that was just as rewarding. I was also thinking like, as far as the long run, opportunity wise, you know, working for the VA, I would probably be able to get to go more higher than I would at Tarzana Treatment Center with my degree.
And you gave us an acronym of what your job title is. Can you explain that a little more?
Oh, I'm sorry. So yes, so HUD is Housing of Urban Development, and then VASH is Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing. So I'm a HUD VASH social worker. My apologies.
And this is where you help house veterans who are part of this program?
Yes, so we basically reach, well, there's a outreach peer support that finds veterans and then connects them to our program. And then once they're eligible and fit the criteria, then they get admitted. And then I help them go from being homeless on the streets and get them temporary housing and then eventually secure them permanent housing.
Do you provide any kind of counseling within your licensure?
Yes, like to a certain degree. I don't, really do much psychotherapy, but I've had to speak to a lot of veterans who have had their PTSD and have had many, I guess you can say, clinical or some type of therapy with them as they're, confiding in me and, trying to give them the proper tools that they need or wrapping them around mental health services so that way they can seek the treatment they deserve with an actual mental health provider.
What work have you done since obtaining your license that you needed your license for?
Like besides my my previous jobs, or
Since you've received your licensure, have you taken on any positions where your licensure is required in order to do your job?
yes, so at the Department of Veteran Affairs for the specific job title I have, you have to have an ASW. If you don't have one past a certain time, then unfortunately they have to let you go. So I do need my license for that.
For the current position you hold?
Yes, yes, ma'am. And
But you don't do any kind of psychotherapy, like formal psychotherapy with anybody?
no, ma'am.
Okay. Have you done any any jobs where you have done professional psychotherapy?
No, ma'am.
Is there a reason you haven't pursued that?
I was waiting to get my license. It's kind of difficult when you have your ASW and you're on probation. So I was just waiting to get off probation and then eventually get licensed, God willing, and then move on to possibly part-time psychotherapy.
In what setting do you see yourself doing psychotherapy?
As far as like who I want to work with, or
Yes.
I would like to work with women, just because I feel like I've been through a lot, and I feel like I can relate to a lot of what they go through as far as substance use, past criminal history, toxic relationships and whatnot.
What steps are you taking to get fully licensed?
Right now, I'm doing all my clinical hours. I do supervision once a week. I do all my trainings that's requested to get your LCSW, and I actually submitted my application, but then found out I was short a few hours, or some hours. So I do have a deficiency, and I need to just get more hours in. So I do clinical supervision, and then I do supervision with my supervisor. And like I said, I do my trainings, and yeah.
You did get a licensed social worker license from the state of Illinois, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you get that?
So I applied I applied, I want to say November. I got denied in January, and then I got my license, and I'm sorry, I have it here. My apologies. Oh yeah, here it was. Sorry, so I applied in October of 2022. I was denied in January of 2023, and then in April of 2023, I was approved and issued LCSW, I mean an LSW for Illinois.
Why did you apply to Illinois?
So at the time I was searching different states. I was not sure if California was I was going to get a license, and I had already worked for I was already with the Department of Veteran Affairs. So I researched different states, and then one of my coworker, she had her Illinois license, told me to apply for it, and maybe that could help. So it kind of stops my time, so I don't um, so I don't want to say get released from or not able to work anymore for the Department of Veteran Affairs. And then I was going to continue pursuing my LCSW. And then, well, then I got my ASW later, and then I was like, oh, cool, I got it. So that was why I got my LSW for Illinois. I was just unsure if I was going to get my ASW through California.
Have you ever worked in Illinois?
No, ma'am, but because I work for the Department of Veteran Affairs and it's a government entity, they accept any license throughout the state because we do get employees coming from different states. So they have to honor the other license.
You have mentioned that you are going on, is it 16 years sober from alcohol?
On November 30th, I will be celebrating 16 years. Yes, ma'am.
And what, do you still have prevention plans in place and relapse prevention plans?
I do, but to be quite frank, I'm so grateful. Like, I don't have cravings or urges. Those have been long gone. Everybody who knows me knows I'm clean and sober. It's who I am, it's my character. So I've gone to numerous parties, occasions, events, and it really doesn't faze me. Like when I see people drink, I like being sober. I like remembering things, and I like people liking me to come back to their family events the following time. So it's just who I am, and it's kind of like, yeah, it's just how I function. It's a part of me.
Who are the closest individuals to you that you always consider as a support network?
So I have my immediate family, and I'm not trying to sound funny, but if you've ever known anybody who's Filipino, we come from like a big family, most of us, and then a big family comes extended family. So I have my childhood friends as well. There's a good majority of my family and friends who don't even drink anymore. So I have that. I have my coworkers. I have a lot of people kind of rooting me on in this journey of mine. So I'm very blessed for that.
On probation, on your disciplinary probation, did you have to do any testing?
No,
drug
ma'am.
testing?
No, ma'am.
Was there any aspect of your probation that required rehabilitation?
This probation?
Yes.
The psychotherapy
Okay.
was the only stipulation I had, and paying the, the probationary cost.
How did you feel the psychotherapy benefited you?
Oh, I love psychotherapy. I think it's great. I love, talking to my therapist. She's my sounding board. It benefited me in the sense of kind of stop being so hard on yourself, Nadia type, helping me get through that. Learn to let go of what has been done. learning to be humble and grounded and focused on now and stop ruminating on the past. So she's definitely helped me build more confidence in myself and self-esteem. So I truly do enjoy talking to her.
And the individual you're referring to, is that Elizabeth Baudry?
Yes,
Okay. Now you began seeing her about a year ago, is that right?
yes.
Prior to that, when you were first placed on probation in July of 2023, were you seeing anybody for psychotherapy?
I was. So I was seeing a therapist. I was seeing her for quite some time, but then she went on leave because she was going on maternity leave. And she was going to be gone for quite some time, possibly, I think it was like 6 months. And I have to do weekly psychotherapy. So I had to terminate with her, and I was fortunate to find Liz. So I basically transitioned over to her. So there wouldn't be a gap of me, and then she reached back out to me now that she's not on maternity leave, but I'm already kind of working with Liz, so I didn't want to switch back.
Okay. Did you begin that counseling close to when you were placed on probation?
Oh, yes, I started immediately. In my quarterly reports, she's emailed my probation analyst my progress notes.
And why are you asking for early termination?
Being on probation is just kind of like a reminder of like how much, no matter how much good I've done in my life, I will always be remembered for the few things I've done wrong. So, they say you do the crime, you do your time, but I'm always doing my time. It's a cross I'll carry for the rest of my life. So I hope that maybe after today, the board will feel like I deserve to be off probation and just kind of start this new journey for myself.
What would you plan to continue with psychotherapy even if probation is terminated?
Yes, I would. But I would like to kind of do it like not maybe every week, but maybe like, once every other week or maybe, but I would like to be able to still do therapy. I like therapy, so
Would you maintain your current therapist?
yes, I would.
And other than the feeling that you are no longer having to pay for those actions that you took in 2009, how else would early termination of probation impact your life or your practice?
Well, I believe, so when I have therapy, it costs money for me to see a therapist. Probation costs. I'm kind of a single mom, so it's nice to be able to save some money when I can. So it wouldn't impact me in the sense of like, I would still do the therapy, but I think I'd be able to do it just kind of when it fits my budget, if that makes sense.
Yes. And would it impact your current practice or your intended practice in any way by terminating early?
No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. We will now proceed to questions from the board. What we're going to do is we're going to go around the room this direction and then back around that way. We'll start with our chair, Ms. Strack.
Thank you for being here and sharing your story with us. I don't have any questions at this time.
Thank you.
John Zobek, I have no questions.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Jones. Excuse me. Just a couple of questions. You mentioned that you haven't actually practiced psychotherapy yet.
No, I have not.
Okay. Can you explain that a little bit? I mean, I know you said that you were going to wait till you get your license, but what's the rationale behind not doing that? Being that that's part of why you are an associate?
Well, I think it had to do with the, so I had an opportunity to do it, but when I look up that I'm on probation, I'm not even going to lie, I get very embarrassed by it. So maybe that's my own reasons why I haven't kind of conquered that and just decided to, do psychotherapy. I mean, I feel like when I'm serving my veterans, I feel like I am kind of doing psychotherapy with them, but to say that I'm actually like devoting an hour to them of psychotherapy, I would be lying if I said that I do that. So that's probably one of the reasons why, but I do feel like I do engage in helping veterans, grounding veterans, using some form of therapy, but not to that extreme of like sitting there and talking to someone for like an hour of psychotherapy. So-
Is your intention to provide psychotherapy services when you get your license?
Yes, but when I do that, I mean, I wouldn't just go right into it. I would definitely like slowly work my way towards it as far as, obviously taking a part-time position and maybe utilizing a few out of maybe getting a few clients, or obviously I know that I wouldn't just like I guess dive into it, but I would definitely pace myself. Psychotherapy is a really big thing for me. I mean, I feel like I can do it, but I think my probation, like it just steers me away. I know that's something I need to work on, though. I shouldn't be allowing that to hinder me as well.
Well, one of the critical things that we look at, in your training as an associate is the supervision that you receive while you're providing psychotherapeutic services to clients.
Yes.
And that's one of the ways that we, as a board, have to, determine whether or not you're going to be safe to practice.
Right.
So, there is a concern that you're going to have, that you want to wait to get to your license until you start practicing,
Oh,
when you have the opportunity as an associate to get the clinical supervision and the experience that you need to, to become a safe practitioner.
yes, I understand that. Maybe I should. I know I feel silly, right? But yeah, I wish I had a better answer for that. I do feel like I do some type of therapy. I guess I haven't just sat there and actually done like full on psychotherapy, but with my clinical supervisor, has heard some of the conversations I've had with my veterans, and she would tell me, I'm like, that sounds very therapeutic for them. So, I mean, maybe I'm just, I think maybe I'm also overthinking and overanalyzing when I'm hearing it, that maybe I am performing it to a certain extent, just not completely like just alone doing, or I'm not saying by myself, but I hope I make sense. I'm sorry, I'm so nervous.
No, you're making sense. Thank you. Appreciate your testimony. It was very, very heartfelt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lorez Bailey, thank you for giving us a very comprehensive statement for us to evaluate, sharing your personal testimony and lived experience in moving through shame. And I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Rebecca Thies. Thank you for your testimony this morning. I'm curious if you could give a little more detail about your current involvement in narcotics or Alcoholics Anonymous, and kind of how you see your involvement in those groups moving forward.
Yes, so for Narcotics Anonymous, I do online Narcotics Anonymous. I have done in person. I don't do it as much as I used to, and by meaning that I used to go to like 3 or 4 times a week. That became more of like once a week. I have my sponsor, I have my sponsee sisters, and I have my, I should say, my childhood friends who are also heavily involved in Alcohol Anonymous. So like at the end of this month, I'll be taking a cake at one of the meetings. So as far as my involvement, I'm very much still rooted within Narcotics Anonymous. I have slowed down a little bit in the sense of taking on like roles there, just because of like how my schedule was, but I'm still very much in tuned with listening to meetings and going to meetings.
Thank you. One more question. I'm curious, the population you serve at the Department of Veterans Affairs, are they all located in Southern California, or do you serve a wider geography?
They're just from Los Angeles County.
No further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you for your testimony this morning. Ms. Redoble, pardon me. Just a quick question. You mentioned that you've had, ample time to reflect on your past, your present, and hopefully your future. And I'm curious to know if, in hindsight, if you had to do your pathway of your studies all over again, would you choose clinical social work? Would you choose that pathway? Because it's kind of like someone chose it for you, so I'm just curious to know.
You know what? I would, and the reason why is prior to being in the field of social work, before all of this had happened in my life, I was actually studying to be a nurse. So I knew I always wanted to help people. And I really commend, like I said, I had messages of like hope, and I feel like people planted in my journey. And social workers or those going into that field, they were the ones who judged me the least. And I felt like I could do that, I could. So yes, I knew I was always going to be in the field helping people. So I hope that answers your question.
A little bit,
Okay.
but it's okay to change your major, just quote unquote.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, so hopefully this is a passion of yours, and that it's something that you will continue to do with that passion and understanding consumer safety and things like that, and that, this is a path that you've chosen and that you want to grow in. Go ahead.
I do feel like when I say I'm in my element, I feel like when I talk to, whether it's my veterans or my previous patients when I worked at Tarzana, I have felt like I've moved. I came to the realization that I cannot save. Not everyone wants to be saved, but the ones that I have, I mean, I can't begin to tell you how great it feels, to house a veteran and see him or her family thrive, connecting them to resources and going from general relief of $221 to now being 100% service connected with a job. I mean, knowing that I was able to do that is like an amazing feeling. And social work humbles me, grounds me, and it reminds me of where I came from, I guess.
Yeah, no, thank you for connecting the dots. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Dobles, for your testimony. I'm glad you mentioned fire camp because that's what struck out to me in your petition. I have no questions.
Thank you.
Just a friendly reminder to the board members to please state your name before you go ahead.
Member Kelly Renisinger.
Thank you.
Good morning, public member. I'm Susan Friedman. Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
I have like two questions. My first question, and pardon me for this, is the Veterans Affairs Department that you're working for a state department or a federal department?
Federal.
So it's the U.S. Department of HUD?
Yes, it's a government agency. So it is. So it's interesting. So you have. So I work with the VA, and then HUD collaborated with the VA to house veterans. So, but I am a government employee working for HUD-VASH, which is the program that the state, county, and city have combined together to help veterans find and secure permanent housing.
Very interesting.
It is.
You are working with a very vulnerable population, but not a population that you had ever interacted with before. How did you decide to do that?
During my internship at the VA, when I was in my MSW program, I learned a great deal from my director. A lot of the veterans that I spoke to, that I guess they had me doing some type of therapy with them, obviously with the supervision. I mean, here I am, I'm not a veteran myself, but these veterans were being emotional, crying with me. We were working through problems together. And when I had to leave, they were so upset that I was leaving because I had to leave. I was done with my internship. So I really kind of enjoyed it. I felt like maybe I am fit to work for the VA. And when I found out about the position my ex-director had told me about, that's kind of when I went in there. Plus, I have lots of family that are veterans themselves. So, but I guess that's how it is in this field. One door closes and another opens, and then you find out you're pretty good at what you do when you put your heart into it.
So I assume working with veterans did something for your confidence in what you were doing.
Yes, yes, it did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Nick Boyd, LPCC member. Just, I guess, two questions. One is I was curious, I know that you submitted your petition for pardon. Did that ever end up getting signed?
So it's interesting. It's very hard to get in touch sometimes with them. I have reached out. I haven't gotten any response back. I have a number. It's funny because I had reached out, but when they gave me that, because I know it's a prerequisite to get your pardon from the governor, they said it does take quite some time, and not everybody who petitions will hear. Maybe I feel like, did it just go in and then vanish in the air? But I've heard others who have also are trying to get a pardon as well. I mean, they've been waiting like 3 or 4 years now. So, but I will be reaching out again. So I wish I had something to say. I would have brought that up but unfortunately I have not gotten a response back in regards to my pardon.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Doble, did you have any further testimony you wish to give?
I hope when the board takes into consideration when deliberating my actions that I committed, it was not while I held a license, but a crime I almost committed 16 years ago. And I believe that I've accomplished in a short period of time more than the average individual who's never had a criminal history. And I do feel like I've succeeded in the definition of rehabilitation. And just like the sergeant who let me get into fire camp, or my first employer, or my former parole officer who all saw something good in me, I hope that the board will see my redemption and grant me early termination. Thank you.
Did any board member have any further questions? Seeing none, I will now ask if the matter is submitted. What that means is that both sides have had an opportunity to fully present the evidence, and the matter is submitted to the board for their deliberation and determination. Mr. Doble, is the matter submitted?
Yes.
Crawford. Thank you. With that, the matter is submitted. The record is closed and we are off the record. If you could stay put for just a moment, however, it's possible our court reporter may need a spelling clarification from somebody.
Fine.
Fine.
As far as phones, thank you.
There's one I got in case, since I may have to write this in the decision. You mentioned you received an award. What was the name of that award you received from the university?
Jean Daniels Award?
That Jean with a J?
Yes.
Daniels, standard spelling?
I mean, Jean, and then Daniels, Daniels Award.
And then with the fire camp, you said Puerto La Cruz, I think. Could you spell that?
Sure. It's Puerta and then LACRUZ.
Thank you. And just if you could spell the name of the treatment clinic at Tarzana, could you spell that one?
Yes, TARZANA, and then treatment center.
And I think that was Everything. Thank you very much. So that concludes this matter.
Thank you so much.
And Madam Court Reporter, what was the end time and estimated page count?
Page count is 43. End time, I have 9:59.
Thank you.
Oh my God, sorry it took so long.
That's fine. Have a
Would
good
you
day.
like
Thank you
me
very
to
much.
turn this microphone off or leave it on?
I think we could.
It's fine? Okay. Thank you again.
Can I call that or do you
Yes,
call that? Okay.
you can.
Okay. 10 minutes. Sufficient. Okay. So before we start the next matter, we're going to take a 10-minute break.
Morning. Welcome back to the Board of Behavioral Sciences meeting. We're going to resume our petitioner hearings, and I'll turn it back over to you, Judge.
All right, thank you. So the second matter is the matter of Vanessa Lee Percier. Did I say your last name correctly?
Yes, Prosier.
Percier, thank you. Are you ready to go on record?
Yes.
Okay. We are on the record before the Board of Behavioral Sciences to review the petition for early termination and probation of Vanessa Lee Percier, Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 2025100975. My name is Christopher Dietrich. I am an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and I have been assigned to preside over this matter. Before we went on record, it was established that a quorum of the board is present. May I please have the appearance of our court reporter?
Good morning, Your Honor. Christina Rodriguez, CSR number 14898.
Thank you. Appearance for the Attorney General.
Anahita Crawford, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the Attorney General's Office pursuant to Government Code Section 11522. I am present here today to assist the panel in fact-finding.
Thank you. Also present is the petitioner, Vanessa Lee Percier, and you have chosen to represent yourself today. Is that correct?
Yes.
Before we went on record, I did explain the procedures in this matter to the petitioner. The Deputy Attorney General will proceed first to present the petition and provide an orientation in this matter. After that, the petitioner will have the right to make a presentation under oath on her own behalf to explain why she believes she is entitled to the relief sought in her petition. The petitioner may also call witnesses to testify on her behalf. The petitioner and any witnesses will be subject to questioning by both the board members and the Deputy Attorney General. The board is particularly concerned with rehabilitation the petitioner may have engaged in. The petitioner is reminded that the board has had the benefit of reading the petition package, and the petitioner does not have to repeat what is included within that package. After the hearing, the board will go into closed session to deliberate. The petitioner will not receive a decision today, but will receive it in the mail sometime in the future. Did you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay, we will now proceed to the Attorney General's presentation. Go ahead, Ms. Crawford.
Thank you. The petitioner was issued her licensed marriage and family therapist license on July 22nd of 2021. That license will expire on July 31st of 2027. An accusation was filed on December 2nd of 2020. The accusation alleged that petitioner had been convicted of the crime of driving under the influence on August 20th of 2020 and admitted to a high blood alcohol level enhancement. The blood alcohol content was 0.189% when she drove her car and collided with two other vehicles that had stopped in traffic. She was placed on disciplinary probation, she was placed on criminal probation for 4 years, ordered to enroll in a 6-month first offender program, have an ignition interlock device installed on her vehicle. She did complete her DUI offender program, did comply with the ignition interlock device in spring of 2021. Her criminal probation terminated and the case was expunged in June of 2022. Petitioner entered into a stipulated settlement with the board effective July 22nd, 2021, which placed her license on probation for 4 years with terms and conditions, including psychological evaluation, psychotherapy, 2-semester units in substance use, supervised practice, dependency program, and abstaining from substances and submitting to tests. Her cost recovery has been paid in full, and she is compliant with terms of her probation. Effective June 25th, 2024, the petitioner was denied her request for modification of probation, where she requested to remove numerous specific and general terms of probation. That request was denied. The basis of the denial of the modification of her probation terms was due to the board not finding her explanation, in part, not finding her explanation credible that her level of intoxication had to do with not eating dinner. Additionally, the board found that her rehabilitation evidence was lacking and was more focused on why she was not in need of rehabilitation, and that she had participated in alcohol rehabilitation only because the board had required her to. Additionally, the board was concerned that she had drank alcohol during periods of time that she had requested to toll her probation, and that she primarily relied on her education and employment history as evidence of rehabilitation, which did not alone establish this. The board only allowed petitioner to be permitted to submit to testing once per month. Petitioner's probation was due to expire July of 2025. However, due to the numerous probation tolling, which totaled 2 years and 8 months, 2.5 years still remain on petitioner's probation term. It is now due to terminate April 12th of 2027. And Your Honor, I can move on to the exhibits that we intend to introduce.
Go ahead.
Exhibit 1 is the notice of hearing for today's hearing date. We'd like to mark and introduce that as Exhibit 1.
Any objection to Exhibit 1?
No,
Could you make sure that the green button is pressed on the side of your microphone?
it is.
Okay, there you go. Just say it once more for.
No objection.
Okay, Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Exhibit 2 is a license and registration history certification for the petitioner. We'd like to mark and introduce this as Exhibit 2.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit 2 is admitted.
Exhibit 3 is the case summary provided by probation analyst Sabrina Barrera Ibarra, who is the case manager for this case, and it provides the summary of petitioner's disciplinary history and her current compliance with probation. I'd like to mark and introduce this as Exhibit 3.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Exhibit 4 contains the petitioner's petition for early termination of probation. We'd like to mark and introduce this as Exhibit 4.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit 4 is admitted.
Exhibit 5 contains the documents in support of the petitioner's petition that she submitted. I'd like to mark and introduce this as Exhibit 5.
Any objection? 5 is admitted.
Exhibit 6 contains a release of information along with a psychotherapy information sheet that is provided by the petitioner in support of her petition for early termination.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit 6 is admitted.
And Exhibit 7 contains the disciplinary documents in this matter that we'd like to mark and introduce as Exhibit 7.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit 7 is admitted.
With that, Your Honor, I have nothing else to present. I would just reserve on questioning the petitioner.
Thank you. All right, I will now swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you will give today in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You may put your hand down. Please state and spell your full name for the record.
Vanessa Lee Perosier, VANESSALEEPEROCIER.
Thank you. Now is your opportunity to explain why you believe you're entitled to the relief sought in your petition. I just ask that you keep in mind how fast you're speaking and speak slowly and clearly for myself and the court reporter of the board so we can follow along with what you're saying. With that, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Vanessa Perosier. Please refer to me as Dr. Perosier. I would appreciate that respect. So in 2020, I received a DUI in Napa County and left the area around 7 p.m. I left because, I was there visiting with friends and downtown. I left in the evening with the intention of getting ready for work the next day. It was a Sunday. So on our way to the car, we stopped by Starbucks. I wanted to pick up a coffee cup, iced coffee for myself for work the next day. And then I went to my car. I fell asleep at the wheel and got woken up by a crash. And remember seeing lights, police lights, and being asked if I had my glasses on, because that is a requirement for me, is to have corrective lenses. I did. I remember climbing out of the vehicle, which was totaled. I remember being assigned to a patrol who escorted me in an ambulance to the hospital. They said that it was routine check. No one was hurt, and by the grace of God, nobody had died. And so on my way to the hospital, I went through routine checks. I went through a CAT scan. I went through a pregnancy test. I had heart monitors on. I felt okay. But at the same time, I was labeled as under the influence and drunk with a high blood alcohol level, which I acknowledge. And after that, after I was cleared, I was taken to county and stayed there for 7 hours. And please excuse my voice, it frequently goes out. And was released the next day. Went to go check out my car and realized that it was not drivable. And in that moment, that's when I knew that I would never do this again. It didn't take a probation. It didn't take terms. I knew that this was nothing I would do again because it scared me. And so throughout this process, I've learned that rehabilitation is different for different people. It doesn't necessarily mean structure. It can mean wake-up call. And also throughout this process, I have learned that your definition of what responsibility is can change. Or let me speak for myself. My definition of what responsibility is has changed, professionally and personally. And so that was in February. I was convicted of the crime 6 months later in August. The court date got pushed back because of COVID protocols and the courts reorganizing their calendars. And so during that 6-month period, I joined a 6-week group called Moderation Management. The board was concerned about that last year and thought that if I needed to manage, then I must have a problem. I voluntarily went to that group as preventative education, as a supplement to what the board was requiring me to do. The education courses, the 2 semesters, it was a supplement and preventative. And during that time, I learned tips and tricks. I learned how to better be aware of overdrinking, better be aware of your body, better be aware of your actions, simple tactics, keeping pennies in one pocket and moving them over with every drink, and when you're out, you're done. Simple tactics like having mocktails in between drinks, things that were helpful that I did not have before. And to be in the presence of other people who didn't have diagnoses, who wanted to learn the same topics. And so that was one thing that I did in that 6-month period. Another thing that I did in that period was return to therapy to my original former therapist who I was seeing before I had to stop. That was a painful experience. I had seen that therapist before, and because of a school, my university requirement was that everyone in their master's program see a therapist, and so that's where I initiated contact with him. So I went back because I wanted to know how I could handle this and how I can make it better and how I cannot be labeled and how I can also be responsible for my actions and redefine what my definition might have been at that time, which is not what it is now. Now I have more clarity, now I have more reflection, and now I have more tools than I did before. Unfortunately, my therapist has retired, and I had plans to return back to him but I'll have to find someone else. So that's another thing that I did during that 6-month period. So my rehabilitation started the night of that DUI, definitely the morning after when I saw my vehicle. And I attempted to explain that last year when I was here, that rehabilitation might not follow your textbook or your written definition, but it follows mine. And that has evolved. And so I was assigned probation approximately 6 months after being convicted. So in June of 2021, so mind you, an entire year went by after my DUI before I was regulated. At the time of my accident, I was an associate and I was given my license in probation at the start. So probation has been a part of my transition out of associate to licensed clinician. I was seeing clients and really grateful that this incident was not related to a professional conduct matter, meaning that it was not in a setting where clients were present. It was not with a client. It was not a matter that impacted a client directly. So I'm very grateful for that. And grateful that my attempt fell short. I fell short trying to make it back home for work, and that the attempt did not fall short in the work setting. And so 1 year had gone by where I had exhibited rehabilitation efforts, and I highlighted that during my hearing last year. Since the probation, I have been compliant. I have rescheduled my daily schedules to meet testing matters. I was testing about 4 to 5 times a month, saliva testings, occasional urine, and through your trust and petition, that got reduced to once a month. I also did blood tests, which are designed to highlight binge drinking, and there's been no evidence of that. I've followed all of the other terms. I've done the classes, excuse me, which are in addition to my own professional certificates that I've done. I followed the recommendation of the psychiatrist that was given to me during the psychiatric evaluation. I did extra professional development courses in relation to his recommendations because, again, rehabilitation is important to me, and I want to make that clear. Rehabilitation is important to me, and I have been willing to follow the rules. So this probation has been a great demonstration that validates my positive behaviors and my persistence, and how it highlights that that night was an isolated event. And that night does not expose maladaptive patterns that define my practice, that put me in the way of harm to somebody else. It does not do that. And so looking back at the character references that I've provided, I have 3. One from my program director at my university, one from my boss at the job I've been having for 3 years, and one from my pastor, which are all very positive and also reflect my engagement in the community and how I love being around people. I also have an exhibit. I started a free little library in 2020 because I like to read and I like to promote reading in my community. And so I did that. So throughout this probation, I really want to stress that not only my compliance, but my passion for people and my passion to care for people, it has not changed. But what has changed is my clarity around the responsibility that I hold in doing so. I believe that's all, and I'm happy to highlight anything else in the packet, any other exhibits that I've included. Thank you.
Thank you. Examination from Ms. Crawford. Go ahead.
Dr. Prosier, can you tell us when you last drank alcoholic beverage?
I last drank during my tolling period. I am a casual drinker. I do drink, I do consume alcohol. And I want to be transparent about that. At the same time, I have done a lot within the probation to remain compliant and ensure accountability and responsibility, including an aftercare and a reintegration plan, which one of the board members asked me about last year. I included that, and not because there's a problem, but for reassurance to the public and reassurance to the board that I'm prepared. Not prepared to mess up, but prepared to be responsible. And to have as a reference for myself as well, something on paper.
Your most recent tolling period was November 2024 through May of 2025. What was the reason you told your probation during that time?
Yeah, the reason I told my probation at that time was because I was running out of money. I didn't have money to pay for the supervisor, and I still struggle with that. I owe him $1,100. I did not have money to pay for the therapist requirement. She's $90 a month. I did not have the money to pay for the testing kits. That's $85 and $140 if I get called for a blood test. So
Slow down just a bit when you're testifying.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
do I need to repeat it?
Can you start off just for my notes? I last got the therapist was $90 a month. Can you pick up from there, please?
Yes. The drug testing kit is $85. And we are encouraged to have 2 to 3 at a time. The, what else did I say after that? The drug kit. I'm sorry, I don't remember what I said after that. But the moral is I didn't have enough money. And so tolling was really my only safe haven if I wanted to keep my license, if I wanted to decide whether I was going to continue with this. So I told it as a break. And it was an opportunity for me to go to my family, tell them where I was with professionally, and come to some sort of consensus. I'm really grateful that I have a family member who helped financially. And by the grace of God, I got a client my last month available to toll, which paid for me to restart.
Do you recall at the last hearing that you had before this board, they expressed their concern that you would toll probation and drink during that time, even though your probation requires for you to abstain?
I do recall that. And my understanding is that I abstained while being active on the probation, and the tolling period is not active. And so one example of me being compliant to what I have been asked to do, which is my mission to be responsible and accountable and transparent. I also have discussed this in therapy, that with the DUI being an isolated event, alcohol is not a problem for me. I also have no substance use disorders, no cravings. What the problem was driving under the influence. That was the problem that I tackled by enrolling in those moderation management courses and being compliant and just showing that I know what to do in order to not repeat that incident.
And you stand by your previous incident or your previous comments to this board that you do not believe that alcohol is a problem for you?
That is correct. I have patterns of positive behaviors of following laws, rules, protocols. For example, one of the protocols that my job has is that if you need to call in the day of, give them at least 2 hours in advance. I've been very good at that, making sure due to the having a cold or needing to take the day off due to sickness, I've been good at doing that. Following through on my commitments despite challenging situations. My character reference written by my pastor had mentioned that I persevered despite having challenges from pastoral leaderships when it came to designing a mental health night for my community that the church hosted. And so that's another example. So no, if alcohol were a problem, it would be a pattern and it would have showed up in my drug testing. It would have showed up in the consistent drug testing that happened every week. And it would have showed up if I were a binge drinker during my blood test, the PEth test, which that is what it's designed to do.
The pattern that would be concerning for the board is that you've told your probation 5 times in the last 4 years, and during those times you drink while you're told. Do you recognize that that might demonstrate a pattern of an alcohol problem to this board?
I can see the concern where that would be an alcohol pattern, but I also want to lean on the stipulations that were put on me by the probation to go and take a psychological evaluation to be diagnosed. And if it were a pattern, why wasn't that brought up? I respect the professional expertise of the psychologist and the therapist. And I also value that both the therapist and the supervisor support early termination and say so in their documents here in my packet, as well as my program director for my university who's aware of this legal challenge. And so I did not toll to drink. I told to make important personal decisions around my finances and around my mental health. Irregardless of having therapy assigned to me, I had to stop therapy with my original therapist. So no, that is not a pattern. Thank you.
This board has made a determination of what it deems necessary for a probationer to comply with in order to ensure that they are protecting the public. And the only issue that's before them is alcohol consumption. And that is the one term of probation that you persistently don't comply with. So acknowledging that that continues to be a concern for this board, why aren't you complying with your requirement to abstain? And why do you continue to toll probation and drink when that was precisely the issue for the board last time and why they didn't grant your petition?
I'm sorry, I have a monitor. That term was unclear to me, that I was not supposed to consume while inactive on probation. And actually, I was told that there were only 3 terms that I had to follow while told, and drinking was not one of them, or abstaining from alcohol was not one of them. And if it were, I would have followed it.
Are you using tolling as a crutch to give in to the cravings for alcohol?
No, ma'am.
And you did say that, quite honestly, that you did drink during your last tolling period. What was that? Can you give us a month?
No, I can't. As a casual drinker, I make recipes with my mom. We'll go to happy hour with neighbors, with family members. No, I don't. That's like asking me what days of the week I wear blue. No, I can't. I'm sorry.
How often do you drink while you were on tolled probation?
So I have about 1 to 2 drinks a week while not on probation. And again, that is casually. I like to try new recipes. I like, just as I do with food as well. It is a edible item. But I do want to highlight that I have been fully compliant with this probation and that alcohol has not gotten in the way. I would not be able to have the relationships that I do. I would not be able to get this far in my career as I have. It would be a dependency, and tolling does not illustrate a dependency, especially since it's something that is offered to people on probation and should not be used against us.
Can you go into a little bit about your supervised practice and how that has worked for you?
Yeah. So I started my private practice in 2022, 21, 22. And it's me by myself. I have tried to get jobs as a therapist, and getting a job as a licensed therapist on probation is very difficult. And so I decided to do a private practice. I would see people who were private pay. And I have recently transitioned from doing psychotherapy to doing immigration evaluations because I see the need. I also recognize my strengths professionally. I like to write, and immigration evaluations help me put into writing a client's clinical case. And so that's what I'm currently doing right now.
So how does your supervisor supervise your practice?
He also does immigration evaluations. And so we go over the cases and talk about the cases, as well as talk about probation and its role in our working relationship in regards to me seeing my clients.
Do you provide clinical services to those immigration clients?
Can you explain clinical services?
Any kind of therapeutic services, clinical counseling?
No, I do not do psychotherapy. Immigration evaluation is solely a separate service. However, I do consultations with them and issue diagnoses. So I'm within my scope. I'm not doing formal chair therapy.
And your supervisor also supervises your clinical diagnoses and how you come about those?
Yes, ma'am.
You had also taken a dependency support program. Can you tell us about your experiences with that?
Are you talking about the community meetings?
I'm referring to term 5, where you were compliant with your dependency support program, something that you had to do in order to attend 2 times per week.
Yes.
Proof of attendance, maybe AA.
Oh, yes.
And remember to make sure the question is done before you start answering. Go ahead.
Yes, I attend the AA meetings twice a week.
You continue to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you feel any benefit from them?
I sit, I listen. I sit in the ones that are open, as I don't want to be disrespectful to those who are genuinely working on recovery. And not that I'm not genuine, but I see a difference between rehabilitation and recovery and compliance. And so, yes, I do. It's nice to listen and hear the stories of other people.
But it's not something that you find necessary to any issue that you have surrounding alcohol? Any relationship, I should say, not issue.
Yeah, that's correct. The meetings that I did before probation was assigned, I felt more connected to and more benefited by.
How are those meetings different?
Those meetings were more collaborative. It was smaller groups and more hands-on in terms of journaling and actually taking pieces away, like things, tangible, practical tools that I can use. Including self-monitoring, checking in with self. I've increased prayer and my relationship with God, as well as attended prayer meetings, ongoing prayer meetings.
And that was the program that taught you some of those tips about integrating mocktails in between cocktails so that you're slowing down your drinking.
Yes, ma'am. And also just making a conscious decision beforehand whether I will drink because I don't have to. And how many, what's appropriate, and how I'm getting home, and deciding that ahead of time, which is something I did not do 5 years ago.
How often are you going to counseling now?
Once a month.
And what do you work on in counseling at this point?
Yeah, we work on balancing the requirements of probation and being a therapist.
Is counseling something that you intend to continue with if your probation is terminated?
Absolutely. I was doing it before probation.
And do you think you'd pursue it still at that one time a month, or more frequent, less frequent?
Probably at least 2 times a month to start, but I need to get my finances together first. But 1 time a month is also actually what I was doing before probation. It started off more frequent the closer to the incident that I was, and it did taper off. But my therapist, my former therapist, stuck with me until I was unable to see him anymore. And then I picked up with the assigned therapist, who's been very supportive, as mentioned in her paper in the packet.
So due to the probation tolling, you've completed about 1.5 to 2 years of probation of the 4
Ma'am.
years. Why do you feel that you no longer require board oversight and that you are safe to practice?
Yes. I've completed 2 years. I could not be here and petition for early termination without completing at least 2 years. So I am ready for independent practice because I am able to regulate in ways that I was not able to beforehand. I'm able to conduct routine check-ins, which is something I missed that night. I'm able to incorporate my spirituality and my relationship with God when it comes to being accountable to my professional image, and also sticking with my decision to not repeat this. Now that I'm more clear of the consequences that the board has regarding this matter or this kind of matter, I have no interest in repeating this. Also, not just that, but reducing my drug testing from weekly, 3 times a week, to once a month is a testament and validates my readiness and how I'm able to conduct myself on a day-to-day while only being tested once a month, as well as reducing my therapy from weekly to once a month, and then having the validation from the therapist that early termination is appropriate. So that feedback from my support system, the therapist as well, and the community members that I've included in my packet also validate. I, again, for reassurance, have created that aftercare plan so that I can have a reference as well as provide reassurance to the community and the board that the past is isolated, that the present is stable, and that the future is prepared. So that is why I am ready for independent practice.
Circling back to this night of this incident, in the original underlying case in the accusation, you were quoted as saying the accident was caused because you failed to identify the cars that had stopped in front of you timely enough to come to a stop yourself. In the last board hearing, the court noted that you said the accident happened because you might have fallen asleep at the wheel. And today you very affirmatively said you fell asleep at the wheel. Those 3 statements seem to indicate that there is some kind of defensiveness around the reason that accident happened. Are you testifying today that you never saw those cars stop because you were in fact asleep.
Yeah, I was asleep. And because I was asleep, I wasn't able to see any cars or anything in front of me because my eyes were closed. But again, the reason why I'm in this predicament is because I was driving under the influence. That's what got me here. I was driving and I should not have been.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now proceed to board questions. Just as before, we'll go to the right, starting with our chair. Go ahead.
Thank you for being here. I just have a couple of questions. Early on in your testimony, you said that your definition of responsibility had changed. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, thank you. So I always consider myself a responsible person. I've gone to school. I care for my parents who are over the age of 60, 65. I go to church every week. I consider myself to be a responsible person. But until that responsibility was challenged is when I realized I wasn't as responsible as I thought. But that allowed space for me to fill those holes and fill those gaps and be able to talk about it openly. I was really shamed about talking about a DUI. It holds a lot of stigma. I was really shamed to talk about having a DUI as a clinician. That holds a lot of stigma too. But sometimes can be a good way to disclose depending on the clinical situation with clients. So I realized that it just made me more valuable, but depending on how I look at it. Not because it happened, but because I was able to tell the difference between now and then. So me being open and transparent with you is responsibility. Me putting on a mental health event in my community for my church, I had a lot of responsible roles that I had to do. And when facing people who had opposing beliefs as me when it came to talking about mental health, especially in the Black church. I currently work with children. They are from underserved communities. It's an educational role, not clinical. So even me working with kids K through sixth grade, my current group is second through fifth grade, is very challenging and there is a lot of responsibility. And so I'm really fortunate to have the feedback from my support, my boss, my professor, that I'm able to conduct myself responsibly and professionally with little to no oversight in those contexts. And so being able to reflect, see all that I've done over the past 5 years shows me that I'm more responsible now than I have been. And I redefined it that it relies on communication and being aware of myself and the decisions that I'm making just in that moment and how fast that things can change.
Thank you. Did want to touch on the tolling periods. And you had kind of mentioned you've been on probation for 2 years, but those were broken up by some pretty big chunks of time. So you've only continuously been on probation for generally about 4 to 6 months at a time. There's one stretch of it, looks like about 9 months that you went. And so given the times that the probations are so broken up, how can the board be reassured? Help us understand how we can be reassured that that you are able to go longer periods of time under those circumstances.
Yeah, I see your concern. I look at those tolling periods from a place of success. If I was able to conduct myself professionally during times of no oversight and alcohol was involved, then that means that I can do it without a probation. We can either look at tolling from a place of success or a place of skepticism. And I look at it from a place of success. Even though I did toll a lot, I felt like it's been really challenging to adjust to this probation as it has become part of my life, part of my day-to-day, has limited my standing in my career and my money. And so being able to take that break, which I was unaware that I was not supposed to be drinking during that time because that wasn't one of the required terms I had to follow during that time. Really, I look at it as success. I did not get in trouble during those times. I have followed the law. I have followed protocols. And when terminated from this probation, I won't have any oversight, and it'll be similar or the same as when I was tolling. No oversight. And if alcohol is involved, I can conduct myself. So please see it as reassurance.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Mr. Stovak.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you.
I'm nervous too.
Nice.
Thank you for being here. When was the last time that you came in front of the board? What part of it was last year, correct?
May. Yes.
In May of last year. And then you told, when was the last time that you told? It was
November
November of 24?
to May.
November till May,
Yes.
right? Till May of this year.
Yes.
Okay. So during, this is where I'm having a little bit of an issue. So during the last time that you were here, the board made it abundantly clear that we were uncomfortable with you drinking during your tolling period. And you have said on 2 occasions here today that that wasn't part of the stipulated agreement. So then I guess I'm curious as to why, if you knew that the board was uncomfortable with that behavior, that why you would continue to drink during tolling after we had already told you that.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I don't remember if I drank. As a casual drinker, I like being in groups with people. So I think it's just more accurate for me to say that I did. But there's a possibility that I didn't. I really don't know. That's like asking me what I had for lunch yesterday. I'm not sure.
But over the course of those 6 months that you were tolling, you're saying you don't recall if you had a drink?
That's why I'm telling you, I think it's probably more accurate for me to say that I did than me say that I didn't.
So my next curiosity then comes with the, our job is consumer protection,
Yeah.
right? And I completely understand where you're coming from as far as feeling that this was an isolated incident and not a pattern of behavior. And that, people do approach rehabilitation differently.
Yeah.
You have talked very adeptly at how important this profession is to you and how important your work is that you do with your community. So I'm curious again, if you know that you want to be off of probation and the board was very clear about don't drink during tolling, why you would go and do that anyway.
Yeah.
And when we're all of us, right, are in the same boat. We want to protect our clients. So I'm just curious because it would seem to me that if that is so important to you, that you would say, okay, you know what? I need to just like do the probation and get through it and then go live my life. But that has not been your choice. So I'm curious.
Yeah, thank you. Again, I was told that turning in quarterly reports and obeying all laws and reporting if I broke any laws were the stipulations I was to follow during probation. During the meeting last year, the board did not explicitly say, do not drink during toll. They just asked about it and said they were uncomfortable. But again, drinking is not against the law, driving is. And during tolling periods, if I were drinking, I was still not breaking the law. I was obeying all the laws. And I turned in my quarterly reports on time. And so there is no confliction. So, sir, with respect, with all due respect, it was not blatantly shared with me, do not drink. If you were uncomfortable with it, we can agree to disagree. But I followed all of the rules and was compliant. To me, it almost sounds like a do not drink do not drink ever again. But for the purpose of this probation, it was to comply. And if I were aware that not drinking was a actual written stipulation to follow, even while told or inactive, that sounds like a discrepancy that needs to be cleared. I would not have done it. Also, I did not told to drink. I did not told to drink. There were times where I told because I wanted to travel. There were times I told because I wanted to get my mind together. And that did not mean go drink. And that was my version of getting my mind together. I wanted to be able to not check in daily. I wanted to be able to take a break because this transition into this probation has been very hard. And I've stuck with it for the past 4 years. Even if we look at only the past 2 years or month to month, it is something that is offered to me and I took it, and I do not want to be labeled or punished for it. Thank you.
Thank you. No further question.
Or while we go to Mr. Sovak and then you, ma'am, go ahead.
So, Dr. Perossier,
Yeah.
hello. Did I
Hi.
pronounce that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So as I'm starting with my questions, I do want to recognize the imbalance of power that exists in this room and in this system of probation. I
Thank you.
do want to recognize that. I also want to understand that my questions are searching for clarity for myself, and they're not being accusatory.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
can we speak with each other?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. In your letters of reference, you talk, actually letters of character, you talk about them mentioning specifically that they all support you coming off of probation. But in actually looking at these letters, they are just letters of character. They don't actually mention the probation, they don't mention the case, and they're also from before you applied for this most recent ending of probation. They're from 24. Your application is dated from this spring in 25. So can you help me through what you're telling me versus what I'm seeing and help me understand some of those discrepancies a little bit better?
Yes, you are correct. So the 2 letters were from the therapist and the supervisor who support early termination. This,
In the actual letters themselves, it does not say that.
for the therapist.
3 that I have in here from Antioch,
Yes.
from your church, and I have to look where the 3rd one is.
My job.
Okay.
You're correct. Yes, I'm clarifying with you that the therapist and the supervisor were the ones, and maybe I summed everyone up together, but the therapist and the supervisor were the ones that explicitly said, the therapist, I can find it, and I will get to the character references. One moment. Ugh. Sorry, I might have passed it. I might have passed it. Well, the therapist letter says early termination is appropriate. And then the supervisor's letter mentioned a similar sentiment.
Okay.
For the character references, I want to highlight that they pointed out characteristics that are positive,
Mhm.
that also are a testament to my accountability and my responsibility to also care for the public, redefine my definition of responsibility, and follow rules, and do so during times where there's pressure, in conjunction with a probation. And so, I'm sorry, I can't find that. It's here. but I
I'll
can't-
search a little more deeply myself too.
Yeah, so no, you're right. They don't explicitly say support. Now, the Antioch University program director does mention the legal challenges.
Mhm.
But it's more of my character that I believe are large assets to my decision making. my decision-making over the past 5 years. They were written early. They were written for a different packet, mitigation packet that I submitted when the board said I didn't have enough evidence of my evidence. And so I wrote a separate mitigation packet and asked for their descriptions. And that's why it's dated before, well, that's why you're seeing the date that you see.
So these are after the May 24 probation reduction case,
Yes, sir.
but still a year ahead of this one.
Yes, that
Okay.
was June, July. That was July of 2024.
Okay. And your self-care plan, really cool. Yay, great.
Thank you.
You use a phrase quite often, though, in the SMART recovery goals, and it's as needed. Can you expand a little bit more on that, as needed, what that actually means in practice?
Yes. So as needed is common language in SMART goals. And I want to highlight that I am aware of my check-ins, of my warnings. I am aware of what I missed that evening of my DUI. And so now I'm able to apply that. But it's not to signal a problem or signal a concern. Again, it's for reassurance to you that I have more awareness now and that I'm prepared. It is something that is on paper and that I can reference. So that's why I put as needed, because it's something that I constantly am searching for or check in about or speak to somebody about, whether it's the therapist, my boss, my program director at my university. I was transparent with him about this whole process, or even my parents. So as needed in that sense.
Okay. So for my last question, I actually want to kind of invite in your educator, professorial side, your kind of intellectual side into this question.
Okay.
So as you've heard us say over and over, our job is to make sure the public is safe. That is our number one priority here. And yet you're hearing that we're all kind of having some concerns here. So how would you help me balance myself in this ethical dilemma that's showing up of having these two things that I have to weigh out
Mhm.
and find my way through? How would you approach that if you were sitting in my seat?
Yeah. Yeah. I would take the person's explanation at face value and weigh it with the packet. I also would listen to the hardship of the probation and the mental state that it puts on someone, and that power differential, that because somebody is assigned a therapist or assigned a supervisor doesn't mean it's as effective as we would think it is systemically. I also would acknowledge the bureaucracy in the process. I also would acknowledge the oppression, too. And also with the shared goal that I want people to be safe as well. I have always, and my reasoning that evening for leaving at 7 was so that I could get ready to go to work, so that I could be on time, so that I could see the caseload that I had for the day. And unfortunately, those got canceled because I wasn't able to be there. That stings. One thing that I don't know about you as clinicians, but one thing for me, to not be available for your client hurts. And so to carry that with me into a new client situation under this probation is hard. I'm not able to be my 100% therapeutic self. And so, again, I want to validate that the people who have advocated for me, the ones who have been a part of this journey since it was assigned, see it over and over with me. So yeah, that's what I would consider if I were you. I would consider the greater systemic impact of the person at the table. I would consider how it affects them systemically, and really have they demonstrated safety to the public, even during tolling periods of success, not periods of skepticism. It's strength-based.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lorez Bailey, public member. Thank you for being here today. One of the things that I heard you say a few times is that you're much able better to regulate now. And I'm assuming when you're saying that you weren't talking about alcohol, you were talking, I don't know what exactly you were talking about. So can you talk more about and delve into more about your ability to regulate?
Yes, it's all of the above. Because if I fell asleep behind a wheel or didn't see cars coming, there was regulation that did not happen. If I was walking to my car from a Starbucks, there was regulation that was not happening. And so what I would do differently is be able to solicit from a safe person in the group their opinion and follow it. And do that before drinking. Do that as a safeguard. That's one way I would regulate. That's something I would do differently, in addition to the pennies and the mocktails and things. Also, with the awareness of taking micro steps day to day and incorporating my needs into prayer with God, that has also helped me take a step back and say that this is overwhelming. I am overwhelmed because I'm starting to feel it more in my body. I'm starting to feel it more in my responsibilities. Like maybe I'm showing up a little later to work than I would. Not late, but later. And so being able to talk about that more. But again, as mentioned, with this being an isolated event, I have been on time to engagements. I have elicited and incorporated communication with important parties. But I believe I'm a little quicker to do it now, especially having a monitor to report to and being able to explain myself to people without them asking me to or waiting for me to explain. I'll just go ahead and do it because I understand the value that it adds to my relationships. And so it's been that practice and that awareness that I've incorporated over the past 5 years. I think also with maturity and growth, that incident happened when I was 29. I'm 35 now. Too. And also, I'm really grateful to God that I have a very supportive family. I have 2 parents that support me and being able to help me walk through that process of better regulating and taking the feedback of others, taking my yearly appraisals at work more in depth, with more weight, if you will. And so before, it's really easy to go with the flow of things when you're an associate. Being shuffled from setting to setting, supervisor to supervisor can become very robotic. And so this probation slowed that down for me, especially getting into private practice work where the flow is different. The people are different and the circumstances were different and have changed. So when I say I've been able to regulate better, it's because my circumstances have changed. But I also must be transparent with you that with this probation being as challenging as it still impacts my regulation. And it can almost feel counterintuitive if I've done all of the things that I'm supposed to do. And I'm still not able to get a job. That's sad. That can be depressing, even no matter how often you go to therapy. Even if it were increased, it's still part of the probation, which adds to the weight. So yes, I'm able to regulate better, but regulating is like a boat being on the waves. The boat's gonna move no matter what. We just want it to move in the right direction.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
Right.
Rebecca Thies, public member, thank you for being here today and for your testimony, Dr. Perosier. My questions actually speak to a few things you were just speaking to, so apologies to make you repeat some things. You mentioned in your testimony, I have a monitor, and you just mentioned again a monitor that you report to. I'm just looking for clarity on what that means and looks like.
Yeah, we're all assigned a case manager, monitor, upon being assigned to this probation, who we have to provide our quarterly reports to. or emails or any concerns or questions that we have. And I would have to look back in my emails to see if there was clarity around the drinking term when it comes to tolling. And if so, it would be early on, somewhere in my emails in 2021. So when I said monitor, I was referring to the case manager.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
You mentioned that getting a job as a licensed therapist
Yeah.
is very difficult while on probation. Can you just expand on that difficulty a bit and what the issues there really are?
Yes. So I have two examples. So when I started my private practice, I was looking to get clients in multiple directories, and one of the common ones is Psychology Today. So I set up a Psychology Today profile. In addition, I set up an Alma profile because you're also able to get clients through Alma, which is another directory / insurance panel provider. And I spoke with a recruiter, told the recruiter my situation, and asked if it were still okay. The same conversation that I had with Psychology Today, as well as another directory called Open Path. For directories, usually they will post your practice. They are just a reference point, bless you, just a reference point for people to find therapists. As long as you have a valid active license, you can be posted. Alma, on the other hand, the recruiter told me that it should be fine and set me up, got me set up, and got my profile set up. I got one client, and I reached out to the recruiter and I provided my stipulations, another probation term that I followed. I provided my stipulations to the recruiter. One of the stipulations is that you provide a copy of your decision in order to your employer. Alma isn't really an employer, but again, I was trying to be transparent. I was transparent. He forwarded, and I have this email, he forwarded his the decision in order to his supervisor. That, I think maybe the day after, the supervisor said, "We can't have you. Sorry, try again when you're off." And she terminated my account. I continued to meet with that client for a year. And during times of toll, I made sure that my clients had proper exercises, set up goals during my tolling. I made sure that they were well off. And I also made sure that my colleagues who were aware of my tolling and the supervisor knew what to do in my absence. And that wasn't to go drink. But I want to emphasize that I still took care of my one client that I received in this panel or this directory that wouldn't have me on their panel anymore because my license was on a probation. And so to add to the question that Mr. Sovek asked me, I think another thing that could be helpful to consider is that we don't have a lot of advocacy. A license on probation is still valid, and we should still be able to practice, which we are, but maybe some advocacy or someone as a liaison to emphasize that we're practicing safely would be nice in these kinds of situations. That was one example. Another one was I applied for a non-therapy role with a nonprofit in Oakland. It was to provide CEs and education. So one of the things that I'm good at, and one of the things that I went to school for is to educate and to help design courses. And so because the agency would have needed to use my license, I have this email as well. She said that she was unable to hire me, but to send her an email, which I don't know if that role is still available. That was over a year ago at this point. But that is just two of more than one instance of finding work, is that we're seen as a liability when really we're following and complying and, for a process that values rehabilitation, it needs to also or can benefit from also supporting the people who are rehabilitating to meet that term. That's a term of the probation, is to remain in clinical work. But if we can't find it, it defeats the purpose. So those are two examples.
All right, one last question. Just so I understand the timeline, your biological fluid testing was reduced in May 2024? I was not with the board
No, it's okay.
then, so.
Biological fluid testing was reduced to once per month effective July 25th, 2025.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
No further questions.
Dr. Walker.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Annette Walker, thank you, Dr. Perosier. I appreciate your testimony today. Not to sound redundant, but you've kind of touched on some of my thoughts in the questioning that I'm about to ask you from other board members here. So forgive me if it's a little bit redundant.
Okay.
Let me just reiterate that the board's responsibility is consumer protection, okay? By no means to punish you, okay? And as I reach and struggle for understanding here, I get it intellectually, and based on your own words, you mentioned several times about responsibility. You said, in theory, your definition of responsibility has changed, okay? And so I just want to build on that a little bit. And also, we've heard the word character thrown out there many times, okay? Which strikes me. And I'm getting to my question here, but I'm trying to put it in a context, again, because I'm reaching for understanding, okay? Based on your testimony. I believe in our packet, we received an email from a student.
Yes.
From you,
Yeah.
to you.
Mhm.
It's entitled Gratitude. It's on page 35 of our packet. And I noticed at the end of that, when you responded to the student, I just want to clarify, is your tagline, character is power, by Booker T. Washington?
Yeah.
Yeah. As I was listening to you, I was just happened to be on this page, and that really stood out for me. And so I just really quickly went to the definition of character in the Oxford Dictionary. And it says the mental and moral qualities distinctive to an individual. And I was putting together in your testimony that you mentioned after you were released from the hospital and you went to your car, and that was a wake-up call for you. It was a moment of distinction that's embedded in your memories, burned into your memory. And you said that was that was the day that your rehabilitation started. And then you share with all of us that you started to look at, I'm sorry, my notes here, the traits, or if you will, or let me get my wording right here. The tactics that you started to bring to mind that would help you in this situation, right? So I'm just trying to get clear with the tolling, with the tactics, with the drinking during the tolling. Are you saying that your drinking in your mind was drinking responsibly?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. I otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to put that into practice until after probation, which was why it's key that you've gotten a glimpse of what me not on probation looks like already. And it's positive, not negative. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So you said, okay, so I'm just, those are your words. So in her opinion, your opinion, you're drinking responsibly during tolling. Okay. All right, so we have to respect the process here, okay? We're not here to punish you. We're here to protect the consumers. So as we weigh this, we're going to be looking at, I will be looking at your decision-making process, your character of what you just said based on the situation at hand, and your professional judgment.
Yes.
Okay, in both being in compliant with your probation, respecting the safety of the consumers that we're all here to serve and protect, and are you a threat to consumers?
No, ma'am.
No, that's
Oh,
not a
sorry.
question. I'm letting you know what we're weighing in as we go through this process. And so we're looking at all of these things based on your testimony. So again, I just really just wanted to, I'm just, again, reaching for understanding, trying to get some clarity. So I hear you saying that you feel that you were drinking responsibly during your tolling, and that you feel that you weren't lacking in professional judgment in making that decision. It's okay. Okay.
And if I could add to that, in my character references were some examples of things that I've done in those establishments. So in the Antioch University, I'll start with Levin since it's right here in front of me. So in Levin, it talks about providing educational resources, mentorship, supportive environments, fostering positive change. Those are all wonderful things that we do for our neighborhoods, especially those with children. And so those are things that also happened during my 5 periods of tolling. Life didn't stop just because probation wasn't active. Those are things that I also did responsibly when alcohol could have been involved. So I want to point that out too. And want to be that person based off of anybody who reads this letter and hears my testimony, that if they had a child K through 6th grade would say, I think she's safe. Same thing with Antioch. Same thing with Antioch. I taught an adjunct class. It was fairly last minute, about maybe a month before the semester started. I was expected to go through the syllabus. I was expected to update the dates of the syllabi to reassign or change around the assignments. The class was originally 3 hours. I had to cut it down to 1 hour and 15 minutes. So somebody who reads that testimony from the program director who might be in academia, I want them to be able to say, I would hire her to do my class, to teach my class. And not to mention that all of those actions and what I've learned and how I've applied it could have happened during a tolling period where I was not only responsibly drinking, but responsibly conducting myself professionally and personally. Same thing with the third character reference given by my pastor, who's been knowing me my whole life and knew my parents before I was born and my family, says the same thing and spoke to, I came to the church and asked if I could do a mental health event. It was a Q&A done. We rented a different church building to be in a different environment. And I put out flyers, I put out Facebook ads. I invited a pastor and I incorporated a Q&A. I invited 2 colleagues, one licensed social worker, and at the time, associate MFT. Those were times planning. It took 6 months to plan and execute. I had to assign voluntary duties to the volunteers who decided to be a part of the event. During those times, tolling could have happened. So life didn't just stop. And being a responsible drinker was just part of it. But I have been responsible of conducting myself ever since that DUI, told or not. And so I do want to highlight that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly Rona, Senior Public Board Member. Could you explain what a SMART goal is?
Yes, it's an acronym. And I've been saying SMART for so long, sometimes I forget the words, but the M is for measurable, achievable, reliable. Forgive me, I forget what the S is. And is the T for time? It's an acronym. I'm sorry. It's used so much that I forget what the acronym stands for. So I hope that's not a trick question. But it is a goal. It's a specific type of goal that we use in order to craft measurable goals. So not just I have a goal to take home this tissue box, but instead it's more in-depth, and we use it a lot in therapy, to attach a timeline and likelihood that that goal will be achieved. And so I will take this tissue box 5 to 10 minutes after my hearing ends, and I will use it. And I have a likelihood of doing that at least 9 out of 10. So it's a structured goal.
Okay, And it's separate from smart recovery, which is it an entirely different thing?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Okay.
What's a mindfulness drinking coach?
Yeah. So, mindful management, moderation management is similar to Alcoholics Anonymous. It is a real organization, a moderation management, so you can look it up. And it focuses on drinking less or being more aware of alcohol misuse. And so they have meetings much like AA meetings, and they're an actual organization. And so there's, instead of having sponsors, there's coaches and people who make it a part of their mission and their mission to coach others. And so again, I did not take moderation management because I couldn't manage, but I took it as a proactive education. It was something that I aligned with and something that without was the reason why I got put in this position.
Okay. And you're completed with criminal probation?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that completed. It only got expunged in 2022.
Okay. And it was expunged?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman.
Hi, I'm Susan Friedman, a public member. Thank you so much for being here today. I have two questions. In your character references,
yes,
one of the people, which I think, I don't recall, but it could have been a supervisor, said that you're very dedicated to improvements by admitting your mistakes, plural. What mistakes are they talking about?
Yeah. So in that letter, it also mentioned that I was a part of Justice Leadership Council, which was a group that was ran by staff, students, and teachers, faculty. And I was a co-chair. So it was me and another student, and we ran by our 2 meetings a month addressing research results given to us by the student and staff body, creating presentations. We created oppression presentations, allyship, and really advocated for social justice on the online campus. And so you would have to ask him if he meant anything specific around mistakes, but also it could have been related to that when it came to leading a group, being responsible over duties, which was part of my job description. It was much like a project management role. In addition to being supervised at school, clinically and with leadership as well. Being in a doctoral program is a learning curve too. So I don't know if he meant anything specific. You would have to follow up with him directly. Oh, excuse me. Again, I shared with him about this situation. So maybe that's what he meant too. Before getting admitted into the doctoral program, I asked if I could speak with him over Zoom. I received a admission. I applied to the doctoral program, received a letter of admission. And before accepting that letter, I wanted to speak with him. I wanted to tell him that I got a DUI and that I knew there was a clinical portion of the program included in the doctoral program, and would that conflict? And so I went the extra mile, whereas someone else could have flown under the radar and not said anything. But despite the stigma of receiving a DUI and the heaviness of it, I wanted to meet with him. I wanted to tell him and ask him if it were still okay that I accept my admissions. And he said yes. He did say, but if it happens again, we will have to reconsider. And he did say that the school, being a school that focused on social justice, also were firm believers of restorative justice. And I appreciate that. And so, so maybe he meant mistakes in that context. Like I was forthcoming with him about getting a DUI and being on probation.
If I may interject for clarity, I
notice you're referring to a he, and the language that Ms. Friedman is referring to comes from a letter from Sandra Ector, Operations Director.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you, which letter are you referring to?
There's a
Actually,
July,
To be quite honest with you, I don't really recall. So
Oh, okay.
it was just in your character references. So
Oh, okay. Well, I can apply it to Loving Kids as well. I've been working with Loving Kids for 3 years, and as mentioned, working with underserved youth is challenging. Um, I was working with, we were doing a science project, and we were making fake snow. And one of the precautions on the box said not to get in your eyes. And all of the kids understood that. And while I was facilitating that science project, I started a snow fight. And one of my kids moved while I was throwing the snow and it got in his eye. So I was very forthcoming. I submitted my incident report. I apologized. I reached out to the mother. I texted her. So talking about safety to the public, sometimes we make mistakes. And and luckily it wasn't a mistake that was around the law, such as my DUI, but on a smaller day-to-day, which I say small, but that easily could have escalated. He could have needed medical attention. I had a volunteer that day, again, support, who took the student to the bathroom and helped him wash it out. And also, I was taught that only one person should be in the bathroom at a time. And we had cameras in our classroom. So I stood outside of the bathroom just to supervise both the classroom and the bathroom, just to make sure and be that third party to clarify that the volunteer was indeed helping the child clear the fake snow out of their eye. So being transparent about my mistakes is not just in one of these scenarios. It's something that I carry with me.
thank you. A question about something you talked about today. You said it was very difficult to get a job.
Yes.
But that at the moment you were doing, I thought I understood you to say you were doing immigration work. And you were working with children from grades 2 to 5 or something. Are you
Yes.
doing immigration work with those children?
No, ma'am. No, I'll clarify. Because it's been challenging to find a job with my license as a marriage and family therapist, I had to go get a job elsewhere to support the probation as well as my own personal expenses. And so my job at Loving Kids, working with kids, it's a after-school program. I work about 14 to 15 hours a week and I make $20 an hour. And unfortunately, I had to cancel their program today because it conflicted with this hearing, with the times of this hearing. So they were unable to meet today. I help with reading, math, and social skills. And I also keep the parents informed on behavior and community updates. That's my regular schedule with 4 days a week. But in addition, with Loving Kids, I also help with volunteer recruitment events. I help clean out closets and reorganize the sites. I just helped pack up one of them. And so it's a community nonprofit that we help at the gala. They have an annual gala that I help usher at. And so again, these are all things that were happening during untolling periods where I have examined or displayed and demonstrated safety. Now, the immigration evaluations. One of the probation terms is that I remain clinically active. I do some form of clinical work. And because it's been hard to find a job as a therapist, and it has a lot of parameters that could be a turnoff to employer, such as having a supervisor come in, an outside supervisor come in, surveying the building, which they might see as confidential. I started my own private practice. And so I use my license to provide immigration evaluations for immigration court. And so clients come to me in need of a mental health, or they call it a psychological evaluation. and I meet with them for approximately 3 hours. We call it a psychosocial assessment. I talk about their background. I ask them about their medical history, their psychological history, as well as their hopes for immigration. And so I'm happy to be contributing in this way, given the controversies that are going on with immigration at the moment in our country. And so that work does involve my license. The work with the children does not.
So these children live here, or do you speak Spanish? Are these kids coming from another country? What?
For the children?
Yeah, the children.
Do I speak what?
Pardon?
What was your question?
Are these children who live here in America?
Yes. So the immigration evaluations are separate from the work that I do at the after-school program. But my coworkers do know that I'm a therapist, and sometimes will pick my brain and ask me things. I did an ACEs training for them when I first started, and I'm in the process of organizing a resource list for them because we are also mandated reporters working with kids. So the current site that I live at, it's at an apartment complex. So the kids do live in the apartments. It is a voluntary program, and some of the kids started when they were in kindergarten. Right now, I have 2nd through 5th grade, but this is my 3rd site, as there's been a lot of movement and switching around. This is my 3rd site. 2 sites in Fairfield and 1 site in Vacaville, where I help facilitate 2-hour-long after-school programs. And oftentimes by myself, I might have a program assistant or a volunteer with me. And so we go over homework, reading, writing, science activities, YouTube videos, field trips, which is one of the few, if not one of the few after-school programs that take field trips. And so I organize and facilitate that too. And so when I think of redefining responsibility, I also was taken out of my comfort zone working in an after-school program when I am a trained therapist. And I also don't have any children. And I might have been, like back when I was a teenager, I babysat. But I had to look at what responsibility really was. I'm over someone else's kids. And so I've been invited to graduations and birthday parties. And also, again, these were during times of not tolling, where I was still responsible. So I'm looking at you because it relates to your past question around definition. So yeah, those are 2 separate. If I could jump back, the immigration evaluations, I work with the attorneys. And I only do that when probation is active, because I'm not allowed to practice or do anything related to my license when I'm inactive. And so I respect that and I follow that. And that was clear to me. So I only do that. I might engage in an email because I don't have an administrative assistant. So if there's a non-clinical question that my client has, I can answer it. But I only do that when I'm active on probation, but I plan to continue doing that and have boosted my marketing to be able to make that a full practice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd.
Nick Boyd, LPCC member. Thank you for being here again. And I know you've been asked a lot of questions, and most of my questions have been answered. But I do have a couple, probably 2 that are still with me. And I want to start off by saying, I recognize the guilt and the shame that comes with having to tell this story and to be public. And I don't want to diminish that or take anything away from that at all, because I think, that's important to put that in context, right, during the course of these questions as well. So I don't want that to be misunderstood in my line of questioning, okay?
Thank you.
But I am curious, when you've mentioned that you have an improved ability to self-regulate. And I think that really struck me because that, for me, taps at one of the core kind of areas that we look at in terms of protection, right, is decision-making and self-regulation and the ability to do that effectively in the face of really stressful work, right?
Mhm.
And and so I am curious, you did speak to this already a little bit and what you've done, but I am curious if you can elaborate a bit more about what that looks like today. And the other part to that is help me understand a bit more, not just what it looks like today, but why you believe it has improved. Does that make sense?
Not quite.
Yeah, so help me understand more, like, what does this self-regulation actually look like? Paint the picture for me in
Okay.
terms of what this looks like now versus what it looked like before.
Yeah. Okay. So what it looked like before, and I'll use the example of the day that I went to Napa. Me and a girlfriend and her fiance went to Napa to hang out downtown and visit a couple of the local like wineries within walking distance. And we also went to lunch. Like that was our primary goal. We went to an Indian restaurant. And so I think being just more carefree and at that time, I was taking care of myself. I was hanging out with my friends. I was going out, going to lunch. And that was my responsibility, was to do self-care. And so later on in the evening, now looking back at it, I realized that eating dinner would have been responsible. Stopping would have been responsible, knowing that there was a difference between how alcohol hits with food versus when you don't have food. So those kind of nuances. And also recognizing that I didn't recall being sleepy, and that's dangerous. And so keeping that in my back pocket of, will there ever be a time where you don't realize something that you need to realize, right? And how do we prevent that? And so that's something that I've also talked about in therapy too, and in supervision as well. And just getting feedback has been helpful. And speaking about the shame, it's easy to go down this rabbit hole of thinking that you're always doing something wrong. And so that's why I want to validate the feedback that I've gotten from my supports that I am doing things right. So that's an example of regulating, is seeing what I didn't notice then and what that means, like that weighted difference of, and I attach it to the example of having mocktails in between drinks, right? Because if you're more intoxicated, your body's going to feel differently, and so is your reflection, versus having non-alcoholic beverages. And if I am planning on going to a party and having two, then I can have three, with one being that in between non-alcoholic. So slowing down and treating it, I've been working with kids, treating it like a math problem. So instead of just seeing the numbers and the instruction, actually applying the formula and remembering how I got it wrong last time.
So is it, if I'm understanding correctly, it sounds like it's fair to say that there was this like recognition, this realization that these the lapse of judgment in that moment led to this outcome. And from that experience, you're kind of attributing that as sort of the thing that led you to have this different perspective, and then in turn be able to better manage your emotional state in the spite of all these other things that are going on. Is that fair?
Correct. And which is why I chose SMART goals instead of just a goal with an objective. SMART goals are measurable and can help me tie it to a calendar or a amount of time. One of the SMART goals I included was not looking at emails past 5 o'clock. And that's been really helpful too, especially doing work independently, like as in a private practice where you don't have any rules. So that's another example of a moment where I don't have rules, but I can regulate my own and stick to it. Last year, it was asked of me what could have happened during that time that led to this incident. And honestly, I'm not sure. And it was more like event, like what event could have happened? But I did mention that I had an issue at work. But I talked about that issue with my former therapist. I talk about that issue with my current therapist. And it just doesn't add up that that was an isolated event, that I was taking care of myself regarding that issue. However, when it comes to future decisions, I can still keep in mind that work and pressure can still tie into mistakes or tie into a lapsing of judgment. And to me, that's insight. And I recognize that now. I did not recognize that 5 years ago. Also, being an associate, I'm still relatively new to the field, but I was right on the cusp of getting licensed. So it was just a transitional period of I need to get these hours in.
So I think what you said there was helpful for me. So it's really the insight that you've gained through this experience, and you spoke to that, I think, a little bit in different ways. So that is helpful for me. And as you're going forward, what strategies do you have to help you be able to recognize and identify when there may be another lapse in judgment? We all make mistakes, right? I mean, none of us are going to, I think, sit up here and say that we don't do that. We make mistakes, but hopefully we're able to learn from them, as you've suggested here today. And so I guess just being curious again from that perspective of gaining this insight and growing from that, what reassurance are you going to be able to leave us here with today that won't be something that will happen again? I mean, it wasn't in a professional setting, right? It happened to be in this particular setting, but perhaps it does happen in a different way. Do you get what I'm saying? And so I guess, can you just maybe just speak to that? And that's the last of my question.
Yeah. So given that my success in this probation has already started, right? And the tools that I've been practicing here are things that I want to continue. So such as therapy and self-monitoring, prayer, going to prayer meetings, being transparent with my support. And I'm kind of repeating, but the lifestyle that I have cultivated during this period of time, which I believe is what a probation is for, to continue that. That's why on the aftercare integration plan, at the bottom, it has phone numbers. Those people know about the situation. And so, except for one in detail. And I want to include them moving forward. And again, also remind myself of how challenging this period of my life has been. It has taken over my whole early 30s and not what I would want to repeat, and also not how I want my life to go. So that's hurtful, but I acknowledge it and I move on. I've also consulted with colleagues regarding ethical issues. Again, it seems this was outside of work, so I've been responsible with my duties as a therapist. This was more of a change in identity and insight because it was outside of, like, being a therapist is an identity, right? It's not just you showing up and sitting in the room with your client. And so that this period has shown that and highlighted that and how I can incorporate it. So sorry, I just have kind of the same tactics that I've started using already that I'll continue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Dr. Percier, did you have any further testimony you wish to give?
I don't think so, but thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your considerations. Thank you for hearing me honestly and openly. Thank you for also acknowledging the power differentials and the role of your role and the role of the probation too in my career. So I really appreciate your presence.
Right.
Thank you.
Let me just double check. Did any board members have any further questions? Okay. Seeing none. Dr. Percier, did you have any further witnesses you wish the board to hear from?
No.
And did you have any further documents other than ones you previously provided?
I might have an email that discusses the inactive drinking. I don't know.
Well, so the issue is that the board has to deliberate today, so.
No, I don't.
Okay. I'm now going to ask if the matter is submitted. What that means is that you've had the full opportunity to present the evidence you wish to submit, and that the matter is submitted to the board for their consideration. Is the matter submitted?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Of course. So when I ask if the matter is submitted, that means you've had an opportunity to present the evidence you wish to present, and that the matter is in the board's hand for their consideration. Is the
Yes.
matter submitted?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Crawford. With that, the matter is submitted, the record is closed, and we are off the record. If you could please just stay put for a moment, it's possible our court reporter may need a spelling or clarification.
I don't need clarification. No spellings.
No spellings, okay.
No spellings.
What one I noted was you talked about an ALMA profile. Is that just ALMA?
Yes.
Okay. That concludes today's hearing. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Excused. I'll hand it back to our chair to declare our lunch break, I assume.
Yes. Yes, we'll be taking a 45-minute lunch break. So we will return, we'll call it at 47 minutes, then we'll return at 12:40.